Kōrero mai means talk to me. Whakarongo, titiro, kōrero.
My name's Danielle Davis. I'm 20 years old. I work as a teacher aide with special needs children. I was just about to turn 18, I think it was, when I fell pregnant with Harlem.
My first child, I had just turned 17. I was not long into 17 by a few months. At the time, I was working full-time in a nightclub in Auckland City Civic Centre by the name of Keely's, and I think I'd been there for about a year.
I was so young, I didn't know there was a way you were supposed to do it. So when people get nervous about parenthood now, it's because they read all these books and they see, yeah, well, when you do it when you're 18, you don't think about things like that.
Every year, around 7,600 teenagers have children. These are some of their stories.
I kind of was thinking about getting an abortion, but to me that wasn't really an option that I wanted to go through with. Like, I've never really agreed with them.
At first my family were a little bit apprehensive, I would say, because he was considerably older than I was at the time. But what softened the blow was the fact that we were engaged. He had committed to the relationship and he wanted to start a family just as much as I did.
Yeah, most of my family were quite good about it, happy to have another child coming into the world, like, yeah, start of the new generation.
I suppose you could say that there are three main options. There's obviously to continue the pregnancy and bring up the child yourself, to continue the pregnancy and not bring up the child yourself, so that might be fostering, in which you remain the parent, or guardianship, which is a legal arrangement, or actually giving up for adoption, which is not very common these days, or else considering ending the pregnancy, which means going through a procedure of fulfilling the law about whether your particular grounds meet the law about abortion. I think people who want to be pregnant are more likely to do their own pregnancy test, just to buy a pregnancy test and do it. And while we do see people who want to be pregnant, they'll often do that themselves. It's the ones who don't want to be pregnant who tend to come to us. The benefits of having children younger are that you're young too, and so that you have got plenty of energy to look after a baby, and also it has some benefits from the point of view of prevention of breast cancer, interestingly. If you have a baby early on, you have less chance of breast cancer.
I think society, though, has become more concerned because mostly for girls that are getting pregnant and they're young, they're usually on their own and they haven't completed school, sort of thing, so they've got no qualifications behind them. Ultimately, if they don't have a family support, evidently they don't have a job to go to, so there's only an option of government support with domestic purposes. And so I think where society is concerned, that is probably their biggest concern that they have with young teen pregnancies these days.
In 2009, radical Wellington welfare commentator Lindsay Mitchell suggested the government axe the domestic purposes benefit as a way of counteracting teenage pregnancy.
The average age is getting older. In Auckland, apparently, the average age of mothers is 31. So, yeah, they're more frowned upon now than they were 20 years ago. especially in South Auckland, you know.
There's no doubt that Maori and Pacific Island teenagers are more likely to get pregnant, more likely to have abortion, both of those issues, and more likely to have the babies, so more in both ways.
The Māori teenage pregnancy rate is 70 teenagers per 1,000 becoming pregnant. The Pacific Island teenage pregnancy rate was 48 teenagers per 1,000, and although lower than that for Māoris, it is still 50% above the national level and over twice the European rate.
I know for me personally, going back, I wouldn't change how I did things, but as time has changed, like, you know, I started off as a mother quite young, and now I still consider myself quite young. I'm also a grandmother. And so it was kind of like, you know, I've raised my children, especially my girls, to understand and comprehend what life is really all about.
When I was a mum, I wasn't the world's greatest mum at first. I didn't know what I was doing. They don't come with instruction books.
No, I don't have any regrets. Like, I mean, if I had to do the whole thing again, in the same way I'd do it. Like, having Harlem in my life, like, has really made, like, a difference. It's changed me. I reckon it's made me a better person too. So, no, I love having my son around.